All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going a couple of centuries back in time, but believe me, what we find is going to feel incredibly current. We're diving deep into a literary giant, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And our mission really is to figure out why this book, written way back in 1813, still grabs people, still feels so, relevant.
Exactly. And we're doing that by digging into a pretty detailed review of the book. We're not here to spoil the whole plot or anything. The idea is more to pull out the key reasons why this story works. Why a novel set in, early 19th century rural England still fascinates us so much today. We want to get at the mechanics of its appeal.
Oh, I like that, mechanics of its appeal. Yeah. And at the core, you've got these two amazing characters, right? Elizabeth Bennet, who's just got this incredibly sharp mind, very spirited. And then there's Mr. Darcy. That's William Darcy. So imposing, kind of arrogant, definitely misunderstood. So we're going to unpack how their first impressions, those prejudices, and their own, serious pride, how that all clashes and then sort of starts to shift and evolve. It's a fantastic look at personal growth, really, and maybe what that says about us.
Right. And what's really interesting, and the review hit this hard, is that it's not just a romance novel. Not by a long shot. Austen was, a master at weaving in this really sharp social satire. She's commenting on marriage not just as, love, but as economic necessity, especially for women then. And Elizabeth Bennet herself, honestly, she was kind of revolutionary for her time. Her outlook feels very modern.
Okay, so let's dig into that a bit. The review really flags Elizabeth Bennet as revolutionary. What specifically made her so groundbreaking?
Well, the review pointed out that her unconventionality, it wasn't just like a charming quirk, it was genuinely defiant for the time. Things like her sharp wit, turning down Mr. Collins, which was, a secure proposal, even just walking miles through mud to see her sister Jane. These were all subtle ways she pushed back against how women were supposed to behave. The review really emphasized that she put intelligence and, emotional honesty above just grabbing status or money. That was a very modern attitude back then.
That makes total sense. And you mentioned Mr. Collins and those societal rules. The review also talks about Austen's social satire. How does she use characters like him, or maybe Lady Catherine de Bourgh, to, make fun of the silliness of that whole world?
Yeah, the review specifically mentioned how Austen uses things like irony and maybe even a bit of exaggeration with characters like Mrs. Bennet. Her constant obsession with getting her daughters married off well. Oh, right. Or Lady Catherine, who's just hilariously full of herself. It's not just for laughs, though. It's Austen's way of critiquing the whole social climbing thing, the class snobbery, but without hitting you over the head with it. You laugh at them, sure, but you also kind of see the serious point underneath.
Right, so the humor has a real edge to it, a clever way to make a point. And another big thing the review brought up was that stark reality of marriage often being an economic deal. That really shifts your perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The review used Charlotte Lucas as a key example, her marrying Mr. Collins. It wasn't about passion. It was a cold, calculated move for basically financial security, a roof over her head. And our source material stressed that this was, depressingly common for women who didn't have their own money or inheritance back then. It shows this kind of desperate pragmatism hiding beneath all the fancy balls and courtships. Puts a different spin on the whole marriage plot.
Yeah, that context definitely makes the Elizabeth and Darcy story stand out even more. So the review talked about how their initial pride and prejudice actually plays out. How does Austen show them getting past those first impressions, those biases?
This is where Austen's skill really comes through, according to the review. It highlighted the importance of the letters, especially Darcy's big explanatory letter, and how Elizabeth reads it and then has to completely reevaluate him and maybe even more importantly, reevaluate her own judgment. It's not like a switch flips. It's shown as a gradual process, sometimes a bit painful, of them both realizing their own mistakes and their egos getting in the way. She shows us them changing their minds because of new information and reflection. It's very effective.
So it goes way beyond just falling in love. It's about learning to actually see someone clearly, maybe even seeing yourself clearly for the first time. That must be a big part of why it still connects with people hundreds of years later.
I think so. Austen, with this amazing subtlety, used what looks like a simple love story to actually critique some really rigid things about her society, the patriarchy, the class system. And it's all wrapped up so elegantly. The review basically argued that this blend of charm and sharp critique is why it's still so powerful culturally. I mean, think about all the adaptations, even things like Bridget Jones's Diary. It just shows these themes are universal, really.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? That famous opening line. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. What does that line, even now, tell us about our own assumptions, about relationships, money, status? Maybe things haven't changed quite as much as we think. Perhaps it's a reminder for us, How often do our own first judgments, like Elizabeth's and Darcy's, kind of blind us? And how maybe, just maybe, getting past those initial prejudices is where the real growth happens, something to mull over.